Technology can be a burden and it absolutely cause physician burnout. But what if I can show you how it can lighten your load? We're going to talk today about AI and its benefit and lighten your load to provide you more resources so that you can bring back the energy and passion that you have for medicine. But before I share all that and get into these 3 steps, I want to kind of talk about why this is important. We're in a new age, and I've talked about this on the channel multiple times, that it's time now to take advantage of it, but only if you pay attention. This channel is really about focusing on how you can get the latest and greatest. And ultimately, I'm going to give you tools so you can be successful. If you're ready, come closer and let's listen as we kind of get into this today. So the 3 steps we're going to talk about are really about the true cost of not doing anything. Then we're going to talk a little bit about the simple framework to find the right tools and think about that. And finally, you really have to start redefining what it means to be a physician and a clinician in this new era of AI. My name is Theo Harvey, and I'm a serial entrepreneur who went from lowly employee to a CEO who runs a remote multi-million-dollar healthcare startup from his home, raised $1 million from VC and investors, worked with large organizations like Cisco Systems, AT&T, Charles Barkley Organization, Blue Cross Blue Shield, and Google. My mission is to help healthcare professionals prepare for the new normal in our industry before it's too late. Let's go into the true cost of not doing anything. Just like anything, you have to calculate the cost. Consider the cost before you do anything. And it's really important to understand what happens when you're doing all this documentation. What we found is that the administrative load for a lot of physicians is just really unsustainable. It's really kind of chipping away what it means to be a physician, and it really chips away at your true calling, which is helping patients. Here's a quote from Dr. Christine Sinsky, Vice President of Professional Satisfaction at the American Medical Association. We've taken the most expensive, most highly trained people in the entire healthcare workforce, and we turned them to data entry clerks. In fact, a recent study by the Annals of Internal Medicine found that every hour physicians spend with patients, they spend nearly 2 additional hours in the EHR and doing desk work. Let's talk about this. We're going to do some basic math. Let's assume, right, as a physician, you basically spend see about 20 patients per day. Those 20 patients, so you're looking at about 5 days in a week. And then you're looking at roughly 48 weeks. Right? Taking 2 weeks off for vacation, things like that, right? So that equates to about 4,800 patients. Right? Roughly. So now we kind of think through that. What does that mean? So you got 4,800 patients in a year. Now you're looking at, okay, how long are you going to be a physician? Roughly 35 years on average. A career. So now you're looking at what? 168,000 patients in a career. So what does that mean? Well, that equates to roughly 48,700 hours with patients. Which, can you believe this? It's going to be equate to about 23 full-time work years. Just for patients. Now, the statistic I told you was that you have to multiply this by 2 for the documentation. That's 46 hours for documentation. No wonder there's overwhelm is rampant right now. Think about that. You're spending more hours documenting than you have in a career as a physician. So this is crazy. And the way you can kind of figure this out for yourself is I would recommend you doing a time audit. So basically, let's just spend 1 week, go through everything that you do that's non-patient facing. Think about the non-clinical things you do, administrative tasks outside direct patient appointments. This includes EHR documentation, responding to messages, and handling paperwork. You want to quantify the problem because that's always the first step in actually solving the problem. How many times you've seen that even in your life as a clinician? To make this super easy, I've actually have a hack below I'll talk about later. Next, we're going to talk about a simple framework to find the right tools. And so what is a framework? Framework to me is a mind model, just a simple way to kind of start thinking through how to evaluate all these different AI tools that are out there, because there's so many. More importantly, how to figure out how they can work in your current workflow. This is really not about being futuristic or a complex overhaul. This is just really about understanding how to be targeted and what solution you use. And I guarantee there are tools right now that exist that can lift that administrative burn and remove a lot of that physician burnout that you're feeling. Peter Lee, corporate vice president at Microsoft Research and Incubation, said it perfectly. The goal of AI is to empower physicians and clinicians by taking the drudgery out of their work. The key word there is empower. You know what? These tools should serve you, but you should not be serving the tools. I always think about this classic Twilight Zone episode. If you've seen it, let me know. But it was the one in black and white where they had an alien race come down to the planet and really kind of say, hey, we want to serve man. So everyone got excited. So, oh, wow, what are they going to do? They're going to treat us. They're going to take care of us. They want to serve man. So everyone just assumed that the aliens were going to help mankind and serve them in a capacity that was peaceful. Well, come to find out, the journalists discovered, he got on their ship and found the secret of what to serve man meant. And that meant to serve man as part of a meal.
Mr. Chambers, don't get on that ship. The rest of the book, To Serve Man, it's a cookbook.
So they were in essence going to be serving man as part of their overall dinner plate. So a lot of times it can seem like that with these tools, right? The tools you thought were going to help us, but we end up being grinded by them because we're trying to figure them out and just burnt out. So I think the analogy is there is you have to realize, what does these tools mean? And you get the upper hand by doing your own investigation, just like the reporter Twilight Zone episode. I just remember, my work with a primary care practice. They were underwater and they had a host of problems. So one big issue was that they had all this massive documentation they had to cover for like quality care metrics, right? Because if they didn't get that perfectly right, they would not get incentive payments. But there's so much documentation. We actually equated that for them. It was going to be about extra 2,300 hours a year that they would have to document all this stuff they needed for these quality measurements. Just took away from staff time, away from, seeing patients, and just really contributed to overall staff overwhelmness, right? They just weren't ready for all this extra work. So the solution that we came up with is basically implementing a new solution with an outsourced vendor so they can help with uploading and documentation with AI tools. And these tools saved them tons of time, freed them up, and the staff were grateful because now, guess what? They can now practice at the top of their licensure, which is the top of their level. So if they're an RN, they're doing the work of what an RN should be, as opposed to being data entry employees. If you feel mentally overwhelmed, it's okay to physically transfer the load to someone else. Let me say that again. If you're feeling mentally overwhelmed, sometimes it's okay to transfer physically the load to someone else. It's a statistic that says AI-powered ambient clinical voice assistants found that it can be reduced documentation by an average of 3 hours per week per physician. That's over 150 hours a year given back to each doctor. Imagine what they can do with that extra time. What I want you to do is research one specific AI tool that targets your biggest time sink. Typically, that's documentation, so look up AI scribe tools, for instance. Or if it's coding, medical billing, research AI-powered medical coding assistants. Request a demo and ask one critical question. How will this integrate with our existing workflow? We do have something that can help with this framework if you're interested. It's our latest guide. We talk about removing the burden of a documentation of AI, and it will give you a breakdown of how to think through this more effectively and give you that clear framework, that mind map that can guide you in that path. It can also help you kind of look at all the different AI tools out there, currently, and seeing which ones could benefit you. but at least there's a list. I guarantee you'll find out there are some that are free to get started with those tools. So you don't have to pay anything. If you're interested, simply go to sensormed.com/AI-workflow below. So let's discuss finally, in this new world, reducing burdens. You got to think about redefining what a physician's role is to get the results. So what we have to think about is understanding what these tools are being used for and how the impact can be on your practice, your well-being, and your patients. Dr. Eric Topol said it best: the gift of time is the greatest gift that AI can give to medicine. I truly believe that, right? I think it's just not about efficiency. It's about restoring humanity to the practice of healthcare, because we've gotten away from that with all these different protocols and tools and incentive programs. You really have to help physicians get understanding of that. And as a physician, the role has to be not just looking at health externally, how you can help your patients, but looking at health internally, how you can help your organization heal itself, right? I think that's the new role, and understanding how these tools can be more impactful by doing things that are harming your organization. And I think that's the way to think through it. This is a statistic by Klaas Research found that physicians who spent less time on the EHR after hours were 50% less likely to report burnout and 70% less likely to want to leave the organization. This directly links to reduced administrative time to physician retention and satisfaction. There is a direct correlation between the two. And that's just a fancy word of saying there's a direct link between how much time they spend on documentation and how your physicians are staying in the organization and are happy. Think of your role differently, like I discussed. Don't just treat the patients, but look at internal ways you can help the organization with some of these tools. Think of building your practice or organization. Think of not just ROI, return on investment, but return on well-being. And then look at investing in AI as a down payment for less burnout and more productivity in your entire organization. We just talked about all these different areas, right? First, we talked about the true cost of not doing anything, where we actually broke down step by step of exactly how much it's costing you to do documentation. And we found out it's actually more years that you're spending in documentation than you have an entire career dealing in healthcare. Next, we went into like a simple mental map of how to think about getting the right tools, and we provide some resources below to check out. And last but not least, we want you to kind of really rethink and what it means to be a physician, not just externally helping folks, but looking internally of what resources, what tools you can use internally, specifically around artificial intelligence, to help heal the organization so people don't get overwhelmed and want to leave the organization, especially in healthcare. I want to ask you this: does using artificial intelligence or AI in this way concern you? Yeah, let me know in the comments below, and check out some of our other videos when we go into more deeper information around AI and how it's used today and how you can understand it better.